Hello.
You got a meeting, I'm gonna run and get a Coke down and I'll be back.
Just Yeah, I can now. I couldn't a minute ago, but I can. Okay. I need a shirt or a t-shirt. A shirt or a t-shirt on. Last one is all of one. Okay. Hey, Tim. I'm gonna pop out of there. What you see?
I'll see you pretty soon.
Call it to order. We'll start with an invocation, and our county manager has offered to provide that for us.
Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for this day and the opportunity to gather in a free country to discuss the issues before the county commission. We ask that your wisdom would guide the commission as they seek to make decisions in the best interest of the citizens. Lord, we are thankful for our employees and the job they do in meeting the needs of the citizens. We ask that you bless them and keep them safe in their daily activities. Lord, severe drought is affecting our county, our farmers, our ranchers. We pray for rain to rejuvenate our fields and to fill our reservoirs here locally and across the state. We ask for your blessings on this meeting, our county, the state, and our country. We pray these things in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Fortner, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Welcome. I think this is this the fullest we've had it? Or
15 months.
so welcome. I see a lot of familiar and friendly faces out there, so welcome. Brings us, our first item is a presentation, and this presentation, I think I'm going to have Manager Stark, would you read that for us?
You bet. I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. This is a special day. We get to honor a very special person who has done many great things for our community and our county, and I'd like to go ahead and read exactly what this proclamation says that the commission would be looking to adopt. So this is a proclamation proclaiming June 15th, 2021 as Jim Dunlap Day in San Juan County, New Mexico. Whereas Jim Dunlap has been a resident of San Juan County since the mid-1950s, whereas during his residency in San Juan County, Jim Dunlap has worked tirelessly for the betterment of the citizens of San Juan County, including, but not limited to, the following. And this is an impressive list. Serving as a volunteer firefighter for 33 years. Serving as the president or manager of the Lower Valley Water Users Association from 1966 to 1986. Working towards the Animas La Plata project since 1966. Serving as a representative of the San Juan Water Commission since its inception, and further serving as the representative of the San Juan Water Commission on the board of directors of the ALP Association. Serving as the chairman of the New Mexico Interstate Stream Commission from 2003 to 2016, and further serving an additional year in 2017. Founder of the San Juan County Rural Water Users Association, a founding member of the New Mexico Rural Water Users Association, a past president of the New Mexico Rural Water Users Association, a longtime national director of the National Rural Water Users Association, and the president of the National Rural Water Users Association from 1996 through 1998. Serving as a trustee of the Colorado River Water Users Association for numerous years. Serving 3 terms on the Board of County Commissioners of San Juan County from 75 to 76, 77 to 78, and 83 to 84. And serving as a founding member of the San Juan County Communications Authority Board of Directors. And whereas few people who have ever served San Juan County have served with the zeal and level of involvement of Jim Dunlap. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of San Juan County, New Mexico, that June 15th, 2021, and each June 15th thereafter shall be celebrated as Jim Dunlap Day in San Juan County, New Mexico. Approved this 15th day of June, 2021.
So this does require us to take action before we can proclaim it, but that's what we're going to be taking action on. And I wanted to start by saying that I know Jim Dunlap's name has been used in my household whenever we were growing up. And I'm not going to say whether it was used in vain or whether it was, whether it was used to proclaim or to promote. It was the later. But I remember my father coming home and telling stories. I don't know if it was on the Lower Valley Water Board or where, but the respect that he had for you. And I remember that even from when I was a child growing up. So you've truly been a staple in San Juan County. You've had a vision with the water in the valley, and you've implemented that vision, and San Juan County is a much better place and in a lot better position than it would be otherwise without you. So thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion.
All right.
Second?
Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Well, Jean?
Jim really helped us when I was on the Navajo Nation Water Rights Commission. We were ready to give him a census number. But I know that you collaborated with us and you were very instrumental in working with Navajo Nation Water Resources, and I want to thank you for that.
Any other discussion?
I would just like to add, a lot of people forget, he used to be a school teacher. So I like to throw that a little bit in there. I think that's where his temper came from.
Well, I know that whenever I was on the Water Commission, that he is the resident go-to for any historical references, any historical going-ons. And I don't know how you remember everything, but you do. So, great resource for San Juan County. Any other discussion? Not hearing any, there's been a motion to proclaim June 15th, 2021 as Jim Dunlap Day in San Juan County, New Mexico. Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. Since we are partly remote, I'll assert that it's a unanimous decision.
Time for a picture.
Congratulations. Come on up. All right, we're required to do the picture.
Smile, 1, 2, 3. How about without the flash? 1, 2, 3. One more with the phone. Facebook, we all know how this goes. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pass this on to the boss. And I'll invite you to let us know how everything's going and give us some direction.
Well, we need rain. I heard that in the opening prayer, and I think it's certainly appropriate. You know, I don't see any flowers, but this kind of reminds me of the other service that you come along, you know, except the pictures, that changed my mind. At any rate, I don't really know what to say. I've done what I've done with a lot of help, a lot of help. You can't do anything worthwhile without people helping you. So while you're honoring me today, there's a lot of other people that should be honored, you know, and people that you got to have both sides. And I don't know whether there's anybody in the room that might remember some of the days on the ALP project, but we had both sides. And you think sometimes that, oh, the other side is just idiots and they're wrong and all of this stuff, and you stop and think and say to yourself, well, maybe you're wrong. And so I've had to do that all my life because I've learned that I'm not always right, even though my wife says I like to think so. And with my wife, I'd like to introduce her, Christine Dunlap. She's been my running mate for 28 years now. And we've been in just about every state in the union dealing with water. And I think I've made them all, and she's made nearly all of them. But it's been a wonderful life. Lived here 65 years, and I've got ex-students in the audience that stepped in my shoes, and Mr. Lee from the Lower Valley manager's position and director, and others. I shouldn't get to calling names because that I'll miss somebody, so I won't go any further with that. But I really appreciate this, and I didn't do it for this kind of recognition, and I didn't have any idea, you know, 66 years ago or in 1966, I got that confused a little bit, but in 1966 we started on the Animas to Plata project, and it took a while to get it done, as you realize, but at any rate.
Well, we were going to do it whether you wanted to or not, so.
Well, and you gave me an hour today. I don't know whether the rest of them approved with that, but to keep you out of trouble, I'll make it a little shorter than that.
Appreciate that.
And I really appreciate every one of you and your support over the years and support today. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Congrats.
All right, let's just wrap it up.
Meeting over.
Give it a All right, so it brings us to our regular meeting, and
Mr. Chair, motion to go into regular meeting?
We already are.
I think we're already there.
Oh.
So we were in another meeting, so we're in our regular meeting. Brings us to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we just have one change to the title of consent item number 7, just for full clarity. It's the consideration of award of proposal 20-21-12, the comprehensive detainee medical and mental health to WellPath, and the pharmaceutical care to CPS. And that's fully described within the staff summary. It didn't quite carry over all the way to the title, so I just wanted to make sure that that was noted as you're reviewing the consent agenda.
To CPS?
Contract pharmaceutical, correct.
Okay, and then the mental health to WellPath.
Medical and mental health.
Medical
to
and
WellPath.
mental health.
And
Okay.
I just would note those are our two providers today.
All right, so with that amendment, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second?
Having been moved and seconded, is there any discussion? Anybody want to change or move anything? Not hearing any. Those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. It passes unanimously. Brings us to our consent agenda, which is number 1, consideration of approval for regular meeting minutes of May 25th, 2021. Number 2, consideration of fiscal year 21 budget adjustment number 14, resolution number 20-21-69. Number 3, consideration of approval of treasurer check register for May 2021. Number 4, consideration of approval of finance check registers for May 2021. Number 5, consideration of renewal of proposal number 18-19-16 fire support services to Fire Co. LLC of Aztec, New Mexico. Number 6, consideration for renewal of a request for proposal number 19-20-28, health screenings to Life Scan Wellness Centers of Tampa, Florida. Number 7, which has been amended to consideration for award of proposal number 20-21-12, comprehensive detainee medical and mental health to WellPath of Farmington and pharmaceutical care to CPS. Number 8, consideration of appointment of alternate commissioner to the San Juan Water Commission. And number 9, consideration of approval of resolutions supporting New Mexico DOT 2021-2022 local government road fund application participation. And lastly, number 10, consideration of DWI grant agreement number 22-D-G-24 with DFA LGD for operation of the local DWI program. Whew. I'll get some water while I'll stand for a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Having been moved and seconded, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, I believe it passed unanimously, so the consent agenda is approved. Brings us to new business, item number 1, which is consideration of declaration of drought in San Juan County, presented to us by our emergency manager, Mike Mestas. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I come before you today to seek yet another emergency declaration in San Juan County. I have with me today in our audience our floodplain manager and our deputy fire chief. If you have questions of them regarding the drought and the weather outlook for San Juan County and also our current fire danger in San Juan County. We also have our water commissioner in the audience today if you have questions of him after my presentation. Mr. Chair, commissioners, the state of New Mexico by executive order filed a state drought declaration on December 9th, 2020. The current drought stage in San Juan County is D4, exceptional drought, and this is the highest category that there is. Montezuma County and Cortez has filed, and McKinley County and Gallup will file today as well. Lack of snowpack, lack of rain, the weather outlook for the next few months, and the current fire situation is definitely a cause and a concern. In addition, the United States Department of Agriculture, the USDA, has declared a drought disaster in 14 New Mexico counties. The map in your commission packet and shows you that San Juan County is also included in that declaration. The USDA declared that the Farm Service agencies will provide emergency assistance to farmers and ranchers if they are eligible. Citizens who are affected should seek assistance through that agency. Our San Juan County drought declaration will help government organizations for potential losses or may provide funding if it would become available if we have issues in our county. This declaration may assist other related issues from the drought, such as wildfires and flash flooding as well. So, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, with the information provided as the emergency manager for San Juan County, I respectfully request your consideration for approval of the San Juan County Drought Declaration. Myself and my guests will stand for questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
Mike, I think that you guys, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Sullivan.
yeah, I think Mike and them have done a real good job, so. I would make a motion that we accept the declaration of drought in San Juan County.
All right, it sounds like there's a motion to approve the emergency declaration. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion or questions?
Um, We have the drought declaration, but how do we get our citizens on board, like with the water conservation? I noticed Farmington is already doing that in other areas, but maybe some citizens, they know it's hot, but they don't think of it. Maybe they'll read or be aware now that there's a drought declaration, but I think that conservation needs to fit in there somewhere.
Yes. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Totochini, that is my hope with filing this declaration that our citizens will be more aware, and we'll start that campaign. Today, I started that campaign of farmers. You can get assistance through the USDA. I started posting some drought information, heat-related emergency information, and so on and so forth. So working with our public information officer will ensure that we continue that message so that we can start water conservation, which, to your point, the city of Farmington has started already.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd imagine that the farmers are going to use it till they can't use it anymore, but it's the local, like Mr. Lee, having to try to figure out how he's going to keep water in people's homes that we're mostly concerned about. How does this drought, or I know it's a continued drought, but how does this year compare to other years?
Michelle, you come up and give that information. I know you keep those stats.
Right now, what we're looking at is what they call snow drought. And because San Juan County is unique, we get our water from the mountains. If there's no rain here, yeah, it's dry, we have problems, but as long as there's snow in the mountains, we're good to go. The big problem comes when there's no snow. And we've been in snow drought this year, comparable to several years ago, when there was no snow on the mountains, it didn't snow at all the glacier had melted. This is comparable to that. Our snow was gone by April this year. We had significantly lost all the snowpack. So what we're looking at right now, and I was saying this in staff this morning, the rain gauges are what we're getting. So when we have rain in Silverton, we've had up to 1,000 CFS on the gauge below Silverton. It's down to almost 700 at this point. So they're not getting rain every night. When that goes down, we see that here within 12 to 24 hours, depending on the flow rates. So we are not as bad off as our worst year in the last 10 years, but we are getting there. Yeah, we're only in June. We are looking at significant ditch issues. We are looking at significant issues with some of our reservoirs and our local water users. Like when Animas Valley had their issues, Animas Valley Water had their issues, and we were hauling water up onto the mesa, having our cooling centers during the summer. That's what this is going to be similar to in my mind. That's what I compare it to personally. But you are looking at some significant issues coming. If we don't get rain, if the mountains don't continue to get rain, there's a lot of ifs there. The National Weather Service isn't giving us very positive feedback as far as what's going to happen. So I'm looking, maybe we get a little bit of rain. We're not going to have a huge monsoon so far. Could change. This is a 50-50 year. But right now, they're not predicting us to have that rainfall that we need. I know you all received my newsletter. That does have some of the predictive models in it out through August, I believe, this last newsletter. So I will continue to send that out to you guys. If you do have questions, please get a hold of me.
I think I remember we were at 30% snowpack. Is that right, Aaron? I'm not going to put you on the spot too much, but is this year about a 30% snowpack?
Actually, it was quite higher. We were in the 80s.
We were in the 80s?
80s
Okay.
and 90s. The
There's
big-
30% left though now, I think is what,
Near zero now.
near
Yeah,
zero.
there's nothing.
The big difference is the monsoons. So the mountain may have similar snowpack, but close to normal snowpack, but the soils are so dry, so it soaks it up before it makes it to the river. So that's the difference, is the monsoon season.
You want to identify yourself for the
Oh,
record?
Sorry.
Chairman Beck said. My name is Eric Chavez, Executive Director for the San Juan Water Commission.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And
I
you had
have
a
a
question?
question. So are there going to be opportunities to put it out on some type of digital sign to kind of alert the average citizen in the county to look at our website and be updated? Or
I could speak to that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Fortner, I think it's important to know that Michelle actually heads up the drought task force for our area. This is a group that we assembled back in 2018, so it includes, all of the regional stakeholders and water partners, obviously the municipalities that have and operate municipal water systems, rural water. Mr. Chavez from the Water Commission's part of that group. We had participation from the State Engineer's Office in 2018. And that's the group that really is going to be the source of messaging to ultimately the end user, those folks that are using the water on a household level. We also have the Extension Office, Bonnie Hopkins and her group, outreach to the farmers, to the extent that they can try to limit and conserve water, limit use of water and conserve, I think would be of benefit. Not knowing how the rest of this year is going to play out. And, of course, but we're monitoring it on a monthly basis. That group meets monthly. We try to coordinate proactive messages to the community, as Commissioner Totichini mentioned. Farmington has put their stage 1 voluntary conservation measures in place, and of course, really encouraging folks to watch their use of water so that we can conserve as much as we can. Hopefully that we don't end up like we did back in 2018, where August and September were very rough months. So we truly do need to pray for rain. We need to see a really healthy monsoon season to help us, no pun intended, weather this storm. So, but this declaration, and just to reiterate this, because I think it's important, it's going to create awareness to the public, and potentially, if needed, if there's a response needed, resources needed from Mr. Messis' office, that there'll be funding available to cover those expenses. But individuals who may be suffering, farmers, ranchers, they truly need to reach out to the USDA. And there's funding available today, primarily via loans. There may even be a few grants, but they definitely need to reach out and find out more of how the USDA could assist them today. But certainly that will be something they'll continue in perpetuity going forward. So,
Or a release from Lake Nighthorse. And the irony isn't past me that on Jim Dunlap Day, we're passing a drought declaration, and it just shows the importance of the work that he's done. So, any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chair, just a comment. As I was driving in, I was thinking, who uses a lot of water? It's the car wash, the laundromats, and I remember that workshop at Civic Center that said, your toilet uses a lot of water. But, it scares me. I get really concerned because, when you think of all our reservoirs really going down, and we all need water, So I hope that citizens have to realize we're going to have to start conserving. Just a comment.
Do I need to read the declaration, or can we just?
you could take action on it.
All right, it having been moved and seconded, not hearing any further discussion, those in favor of passing the approval of the drought declaration, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any opposed, it passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mestis. Brings us to item number 2, which is presentation on behavioral health activities in partnerships with SJCSO and the BHIZ grant. Looks like Lisa is presenting.
Mr. Chairman, if I may introduce the topic and then invite Deputy Smith up for his part of the presentation. Good evening, afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I just wanted to take an opportunity to really brag on the Sheriff's Office, Deputy Smith and his team for the incredible work they're doing in the community, reaching out to people in crisis, not only mental health, behavioral health, substance use issues, but basic issues, homeless, basically people in crisis. So Deputy David Smith serves as the San Juan County Behavioral Health Deputy, a grant-funded position under the Biz grant. And Deputy Smith responds to calls for individuals in the community experiencing a mental health crisis. In addition, the Sheriff's Office has developed a crisis intervention referral mechanism, not only within the Sheriff's Office Department, but from other frontline Sheriff Office deputies, but also in collaboration with other law enforcement agencies, which is really cool. When I heard about it, I was like, we got to come and brag about it. So we're going to play part of a video today and introduce Deputy Smith and let him tell you all about the wonderful things happening.
Is he going to have some walk-up music or anything like that?
We should.
This is it.
Video first or video first? Sorry. You know, you might have to give me a minute. Lisa.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Well, I'll let Deputy Smith jump on in, and I'm right back here.
My name is David Smith. I am a deputy with the San Juan County Sheriff's Office, currently assigned as the Behavioral Health Deputy. Started that position in November of 2020 thanks to funds from the BIZ grant, which allows me to be a full-time CIT Behavioral Health Deputy. 100% of my time is dedicated to dealing with helping out our frontline deputies, other law enforcement agencies, and our community partners, such as the San Juan County Mental Wellness Resource Center, also our providers, PMS, Desert View, things like that. That I'm able to go out and try to work with them to find solutions to the people that are having crises in our county. Try to get them to resources so that they're able to get there, get through the crisis, and deal with it during that day. So that's where a lot of my time is spent.
Give it a shot.
All right.
911, what is the address of the emergency? We are at my daughter Marlene's house and she attacked my husband and he's got her down on the ground. All right, and this is a mental illness. This is Deputy Smith's case. Okay. Harmony, let it go!
Sheriff's Office, how are you? My name's Deputy Smith. I believe Deputy Smith talked to you a little bit about. And I respond to calls where individuals are in need of service via either mental health services or just any services such as they're homeless, they need food, they're having other issues. The calls of service that I get typically called to are generally either when someone's being suicidal, having suicidal ideations, potentially having what we call a psychotic break is one of the main focuses I'm able to do. And I'm usually called in because I'm able to talk with the individual, get them to a point where we're able to make reasonable decisions. We get them calmed down emotionally, and then we start the process of working with them to find resources in our community.
I ended up having issues for a while. It was about a year to a year and a half, and it felt like I was going crazy. It was constantly compounding onto itself where it progressively got worse. You know, I was seeing and hearing things, it was catching me off guard. I would have random sensations of feeling that just didn't make any sense.
I went through a little episode that a sheriff had come out, and I was very standoffish with him. But now I just love the law enforcement and what they're doing.
Our daughter, Harmony, had another psychotic breakdown. This is her second one. She was late to start. She didn't have her first one until she was 42. And she had another one in January. And we called 911, and they came, and I told them it was a mental health issue, and so they had Deputy Smith come.
When I get on scene and dealing with someone at their absolute worst, you know, a lot of things go through my mind. A lot of main thing is, you know, I want this to be a success. I want us to be able to deal with this individual, get them help without anybody getting hurt, injured, or anything like that. So, you know, one of the first things I think about is got to get them to a point where we're able to make a rational thought, try to figure that out. But the main thing is realizing that I just need to listen to this individual and find out what's creating the crisis for today. Usually it's lack of somebody listening to them. And then my next thought is just to start, what can I do so that this individual doesn't have this happen again the next day or the day after that?
So I ended up calling the
We welcome you to view the full video on the Sheriff's Office website, Facebook page. This was put out right at the end of May, which was Mental Health Awareness Month. One of the big things I want to take away from, let you guys know, is that prior to my appointment getting into the position, we did have a CIT team, which is a crisis intervention trained team that started in 2014. One of the leading forces behind that is Lieutenant Scott Facca, who is my direct supervisor. And we have a team of individuals who, on a part-time basis, as they're able to do similar things to what I do, I'm just able to now, thanks to this grant, able to do this at a more full-time type of schedule. So, do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
I just had a comment. I just wanted to say this, to me, it's really exciting to see this happening because it's been a long process in coming, and it's a huge deal. So to be able to make sure that people don't get harmed and that they get the help that they need. So I appreciate your calmness and your caring too. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I like that on here you have that you'd like to get Navajo Nation Police involved. I know you try so hard to get them on board, and sometimes they don't make the meetings, but I'm glad you're going to be persistent. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I want to say that I've had interactions and experiences with Deputy Smith, and I can't think of a better person to be doing this. He's always been pretty rational and level-headed himself. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank Lieutenant Facca. I know he has been. We've had conversations dating back from before I was on the commission. About this issue, and it's exciting to see the focus that it's getting now, and clearly the help that it's providing, and so I just wanted to say thank you. It's great to have in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, if you have any questions or comments, let us know, email me, call us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item number 3, which is consideration of approval of resolution number 20-21-68, acceptance of roads 6861 and 6863 for county maintenance. Mr. Nick Perot.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Before you for consideration within this resolution is the acceptance of 2 roads within the approved CalStock subdivision and water flow. I know Commissioners Beckstead, Totticini, and Sullivan were on the commission when that subdivision was approved last year. The developer has subsequently built out the roads. You might recall, those of you who were on the commission at that time, the commission did grant a paving variance for that subdivision, so these roads are gravel. Public Works has reviewed the testing information from the developer, as well as done our own inspection of the roads, and we would recommend approval of Resolution 2021-68 for their acceptance for county maintenance.
Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move for approval of resolution number 2021-68.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Not hearing any, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Brings us to item number 4, which is consideration of resolution number 20-21-73, appointment of Board of Registration. It's an action item presented by our county clerk, Tanya Shelley.
Chairman and members of the commission, New Mexico State Statute 1-4-34 requires that a Board of Registration of 5 members be appointed by the Board of County Commissioners in June of each odd-numbered year. Members appointed to the board shall not, during their appointment, be county employees, elected officials, or candidates that are seeking public office. No more than 2 members of the board shall be members of the same political party. The term of the Board of Registration for this appointment will be July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2023. Based on the recommendations that I received from the party chairman, I would propose the following individuals be appointed to the Board of Registration. The Democratic individuals would be MP Schildmeyer and Gloria Lemer. An alternate would be Eli Pavlik. Republicans would be Sally Bramhall and Sarah Ann Frost, and an alternate Terry Smith. And then as far as a Libertarian, we were not able to obtain a volunteer this time, so a decline to state of party per our legal will suffice. And we have Peter Monet, who has accepted just the verbal from my office. We asked him if he would consider the appointment.
How do you recruit or find a decline to state?
It was tough. We literally looked through our voter registration, just our list of voters. We did it for all of the Libertarians, trying to find a Libertarian, and received from the party chair, who was actually the one that was on the board, the previous Board of Registration. But this time, we literally went through the rules, and we had a few that had worked past elections. And so Peter Monet was one of them, and he accepted.
Very well. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Sullivan?
She feels pretty good about it.
You feel good.
Chairman, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I couldn't hear it either.
Mr. Chairman, I think Commissioner Sullivan's question was, do you feel good about the list of folks that are being proposed? And
Chairman and members of the commission, yes, I recommend the list. We have actually the past Democratic Party Chair, MP Schildmeyer is one, and current Democratic Party Chair is Eli. And then Sally and Sarah have been on the board for as long as I can remember for the Republican side.
Okay. Did you have a question?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. How often do they meet? Is this just after every election to?
So it's in March of each odd numbered year after we receive the list of voters that are to be purged. And then they work as a group and go through that list just to make sure and verify that all of the voters that are on the list should be purged. If they have any questions, they work through the questions. If it's one that they find should not be purged, then we don't purge them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, you know, San Juan County, a lot of it is Navajo Nation, and I'm wondering, maybe some people might say, there's not a Navajo rep, but I know that it's hard to find people who are, you know, they're into their party and that kind of thing. But maybe it'll happen in the future.
We're always open to suggestions.
Okay.
Any other questions? Not hearing any. Those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Not hearing any. It passes unanimously. Brings us to item number 5 on our agenda, which is the presentation of the Sweetwater Pump District.
Chairman, we don't have a actual vote. Yeah, the motion or a second for that.
I move that we accept.
I thought we did the.
Did we do the motion? No, we didn't do it. Oh.
All right. Having, you move?
I move. I'll second.
Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Not hearing any other discussion. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Not hearing any. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Getting ahead of myself. Brings us to item number 5, which is presentation of the Sweetwater Pump Storage Project. I believe it's going to be presented by Matthew Shapiro, the CEO of R Plus Hydro LLP.
Hi, good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager Stark, thanks for setting this up. I'm sorry I couldn't make it down last week, but hopefully today will be informative. If I could share my screen, I can start that presentation. But I need
Yes,
permission.
stand by just a moment. Sorry, sir. Okay.
Yeah. I showed my pop out there. By the toilet going down the steps. Yeah.
Okay. So good afternoon. I'm Matthew Shapiro, CEO of R Plus Hydro, based in Salt Lake and Boise. My firm is a developer of pumped storage hydro projects, which we'll talk about. Our sister company is called R Plus Energies, and it is based in Salt Lake, and they develop solar, wind, and battery storage as well. This is a project that was first proposed 10 years ago by a different party. I guess they did some investigating, but my guess is that at the time, the market certainly wasn't mature enough for projects like this 10 years ago, but that's been changing quite a bit. Now, all the talk of drought makes me a little uncomfortable talking about pump storage project, but it is some years out, and there's a lot of study between now and seeing if this project will be realized, and water sourcing with a one-time fill for this is something that will be of great importance in our studies. So basically, Sweetwater Pump Storage is a planned closed-loop pump storage hydro project, which means there's 2 artificial reservoirs joined for energy storage. We'll look at that in San Juan County. Size is 600 megawatts, about 8 hours of full output storage. So I think that's about 3/4 of the generating output of San Juan Generating Station right now, just to put it in perspective. 9 miles north of San Juan Generating Station. It's on the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation, tribal lands. The tribe is a co-applicant on our FERC preliminary permit. And so there's good support there. A lot of renewable energy development going on in the area that you're undoubtedly familiar with, and a growing need for energy storage. So it's pretty strategic, we think. FERC preliminary permit granted in 2020. A preliminary permit from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is not really a permit to do anything. It's just a placeholder for eventually filing a license application, which is needed from this entity, in addition to all other state and local permitting that's required, and federal as well. We just completed a recon engineering study about a month ago, and I'll show you some images from that. Target date for this project to be online is 2029, 2030. And we are aware that there are some other pump storage projects proposed in the region, but we think this one has far greater reliability than others. So this is basically how pump storage works. You pump water from the lower reservoir to the upper. When you have surplus energy, lower value energy, so there's going to be a lot of solar in the middle of the day that does not coincide with when it's needed. It could be nuclear in the middle of the night. It could be wind energy in the middle of the night. And that's what you use for pumping. And then when you want to generate, you flip a switch and the water flows in the opposite direction, generating power. It's very fast and flexible in its response to utility needs. There is, of course, some loss in this round trip. You don't get energy for free. So it's about 75 to 80% efficient, but it's worth it in what you can do with that stored energy and your ability to help utilities manage the grid. There are 43 of these operating in the US today, and more than 130 around the world. So it's a very well-established technology. We're often compared with batteries. Essentially, the main differences are pump storage projects like this have a lifespan of 75, 80, 100 years. I mean, I think 2 have ever been retired in the world. And the other major advantage for batteries is longer hours of storage economically. So this one's sized for 8 hours. Most batteries are only economical at 2 to 4 hours of storage. A little bit of background on the company. So we are essentially the leading developer of new pump storage in the US today. Formed in 2019, a partnership between R+ Energies and GridFlex Energy, which I started in 2009 with partners specifically just to pursue the best new pump storage sites in the country. We have 10 projects in different stages of development, mostly across the Western US. Currently funded by a large commercial real estate firm in Salt Lake called the Gardner Company. And we have a great internal team with a lot of experience in developing energy projects. and we hire great firms, external firms to support our engineering work and our permitting efforts. This is the approximate location of the site we're looking at. It's about 6 miles from the reservation boundary to the south. And this is what the site concept is. It's on a mesa, so essentially it would involve construction of a reservoir on the mesa top, 59 acres, footprint, roughly 70-foot high ring dam excavated from inside out, and a 172-acre lower reservoir formed with a dam about 146 feet at the highest point. That would be joined by underground tunnels, which we'll show in the next slide. The powerhouse is underground, built from the ground level down in this area. 26-foot diameter tunnel, and there's about 1,000-foot, 1,100-foot vertical drop between the upper and the lower site. That's just a view on the satellite. So we're taking advantage of this this natural formation here to get our lower reservoir capacity. This is a schematic of what it would look like. As you can see, everything is underground except for the upper and lower reservoir. And the powerhouse is built from the ground level down in this case, which is actually a very economical approach versus what we normally have to do, which is an underground cavern, entirely underground cavern. Transmission line would be built, powerhouse to interconnect in the San Juan generating station area. That's about 9-mile length there. And there's a lot of transmission coming out of that area, feeding the load centers, which is what makes it strategic from a transmission standpoint. Water, one of the biggest questions. We need water to operate the project. It's a closed loop system, so once you fill it, all you have beyond that is the evaporation makeup water, which can be cut significantly if we cover at least one of the reservoirs. It's possible in this case. At the proposed size would require 5,000 acre feet. If we didn't cover reservoirs, it would also require 500 acre feet per year of evaporation makeup water. So we looked at, in terms of physical infrastructure, as you probably know, there's a sizable infrastructure at the San Juan generating station, which is scheduled for retirement. That doesn't speak to the water rights question. It just tells us that there is at least a physical infrastructure in the vicinity from which that 5,000 could potentially be sourced over the course of a 1-year fill period, possibly longer. And then a water supply line have to be built from that area to provide the fill. And as I mentioned, of course, water sourcing is a key question to be addressed for project development. It's a very complex issue, so we're exploring some possibilities. Again, it would not be needed until 2028, 2029, 2030. There are possibilities for banking water during better water years, or other solutions using a combination of surface and groundwater. So we're going to be looking at all those possibilities. In terms of project status, so I mentioned the preliminary permit granted by FERC, which is just a placeholder. We and the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe are co-applicants on that. Recon engineering study completed recently, showing no What we look for are fatal flaws in the geology or other aspects of the concept. No fatal flaws were found at that standpoint. We're going to need to do some additional geotech investigation, try to avoid tunneling through shale and that sort of thing. A preliminary cost estimate generated as part of that study. Market outreach, of course, we need to know that there's a market for the project, and certainly in the region there are utilities who are going to be needing significant amounts of energy storage as they make their shift to dependency on solar and wind energy. Next steps, cultural resource assessment is underway, so we want to make sure our project footprint is not on top of extremely sensitive cultural resources. That has to be known. Geotech investigation, confirm the rock type and the quality. Move on to the phase 2 engineering, which refines the concept and the cost estimations. And continue working on identifying the source of fill water and confirming that if we don't, there'll be no project. If we do, great, there may well be a project. And then interconnection to the transmission system. We have to get in line for our interconnecting the project to utility-owned transmission. The target timeline for a project. So most of that work this year, we may not, confirm a fill water source this year. We'd like to. If we don't, that study will continue. Next year, move into our phase 2 engineering, complete that engineering, that is. Start working on phase 3, move forward on the FERC documents. Projects like this are considered hydroelectric projects, even though they're not really. I mean, they're not located on any natural streams or waterways. So generally speaking, and especially if they're on any federally involved lands, we need a FERC license. So the next step in that process is what's called a pre-application document, where we itemize all of the potential sensitivities from a wildlife, plant life, cultural, social, all of these standpoints have to be documented in that. We submit that to FERC, and then once that's accepted, we can begin doing field studies and all the things needed for that'll feed into an EIS for the FERC license application. The BLM is a part of the picture as well, because a portion of the transmission line would be on BLM land. Finalize our water sourcing, ideally. And then in 2023, move forward into the draft license application with FERC, continue our engineering and other permitting aspects of the project. 2024, final license application. That's when FERC takes over the EIS process, and it takes about a year. Finalize all the engineering, permitting. 2025, FERC license issued, ideally. Secure all our other permits, finalize the engineering. By that point, we really do need to have a utility offtake agreement, a power purchase agreement, or a utility who has agreed to buy the project. Otherwise, you can't build it. Can't get financing to construct a $1.3 billion project without a utility or buying it, and knowing when all the engineering is aiming to get the final price tag on the project. That all comes together. Finalize construction financing, and then it's a roughly 4-year construction process. Actually, in this case, The engineers think it could be 3.5 years and perhaps be ready to go and flip the switch in 2029 operation. So the benefits of the project, its purpose is really to provide economical long duration energy storage to meet those peak demands for utilities in 2029, 2030 and long into the future, making, essentially the fuel for the project, for the pumping would be wind and solar and anything else that the utility wants to use to provide the pumping. Preserve grid stability as conventional resources are retired, because that starts to suffer a little bit as you lose those coal plants. Make more effective use of the transmission system, because the solar and the wind will not, utilize the existing transmission in the most optimal way. So the storage can help balance that in the course of a day, in the course of a year. It's a $1.3 billion, maybe even closer to 1.4 infrastructure investment, a very long lifespan. 300 to 400 construction jobs for a 3 to 4 year period. Then about 18 to 20 full-time employees for the life of the project. And really a project that has very little impact once it's built. It's silent, there's no light pollution. You basically have two reservoirs and the transmission line is pretty much all anybody would see of the project. And then you have our contact information there. So I'll open it up to any questions you might have at this point. We're very early in the process. We all have 1,000 questions. I just presented to the tribal council in Toyuk last week. And it's very much an incremental, step-by-step project. None of these have been built in the United States since 1993. That was the last time a major pump storage project was built in the U.S. And that was by a utility. But again, there's a surge in interest in these types of projects now because of the major shifts going on in the market systems. So,
Mr. Shapiro, do you mind if we ask a few questions?
Oh, certainly. Go ahead.
All right. So you had, well, first off, I would encourage you to contact our San Juan County Water Commission just to explore if they have any water that's available to lease. I know that they have some, so I would encourage you to reach out to them and explore that possibility. And you can contact, it's Aaron Chavez at the Water Commission. Second to that, I would ask, I know you use language as you're partnering with the Ute tribe, that you're doing a joint application with the Ute tribe. What, as far as ownership, how is that going to work with the Ute tribe? Have you gotten that far?
No, we have not got that far.
Yeah.
Most likely, with these types of projects, the utilities we've spoken to across the West, they tend to want to own these projects themselves because they can rate lease it. It's a long-term infrastructure asset. It does get complicated if there are multiple owners, but that is an open question, I would say, at this particular stage of the project.
Okay, so it's like as far as depreciating the capital and that benefit and those things?
Yeah, that's still an open.
Okay. And one last question I had, how would you access the location? Where would you access it from?
Right. So the upper reservoir site, which is the one we visited last week, that's fairly easy access on the existing dirt road off of the highway north of Shiprock, or between Shiprock and Toyuk. The lower site is a little more tricky right now. We're just gonna have to do more field work and look at what the optimal point of access would be for the particular one. But we've looked at everything from coming from the east, from La Plata, or from the west, from that same highway.
Okay. And I don't have any other question. Do any of the other commissioners have questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have some comment and a question. I'm just trying to process kind of what you've said. This is Terry Fortner. And so you've also said that, so you're mitigating any evaporation that is happening. So the water is basically recycled in these reservoirs?
Yes.
Okay, and it's coming from the San Juan River?
Possibly. Possibly. That's we're looking at every possible alternative. It would be ideal, given the volume needed. That probably makes the most sense versus groundwater. The makeup water that's needed for evaporation loss, let's say if we cover the upper reservoir, we'll still have something like 300 acre feet per year evaporation from the lower. If that could be groundwater or some other source, that's possible, but that's a much lower volume than the initial fill. So we'll be studying every potential source.
We're looking at the transmission lines across San Juan County, is that correct? That's what we're addressing?
The transmission line would be about 6 miles to the south, be on the reservation, and then it would cross into BLM land. For the final 3 miles, almost all of it's BLM. There might be some private there until it gets to the San Juan Generating Station. And it's all San Juan County.
Okay, so then on our handout, it says that you've gotten strong tribal support from the Ute Reservation for this project?
Yes. Now, of course, studies are continuing, but they are very, very interested in seeing where this goes. And we are collaborating closely.
And then the 300 to 400 construction jobs at the location, where will that come from, the workforce?
Right. Well, that ideally would be drawn from local workforce. It's a lot of essentially, excavation, some tunneling, earth moving, heavy equipment. So I think, any local experience in mining operations would probably directly carry over to this type of project. The tribe will certainly benefit from some of that construction work. And then, there are obviously some specialized skills that have to be brought in, but I think that's largely in association with the operation of the plant rather than the construction phase. So, as the studies continue, we will look at where a workforce would be housed and where they would be drawn from, but certainly maximizing the benefit to the local economy and local workforce is going to be a natural high priority for us.
Okay, and then I have 3 more questions. What is a fatal flaw?
A fatal flaw is something that would kill the project right away.
So is it based on a certain thing, or?
It could be earthquake risk. It could be, if we find that there's some cultural sensitivity, we come across something in the next few months that is just, there's no way around it, no way to mitigate it. That could be a fatal flaw. But from a technical, physical standpoint, there don't appear to be any. But the geological studies are very important because we think that the whole project is in geological layers that are okay for construction of this type. But if we find that shale is at a higher point than we think, and we'd have to tunnel through it, then that might make us think twice. But from what we understand now, we haven't found any technical fatal flaws.
Okay, and then during the operational phase, how many people will be employed?
Yeah, 18 to 20, probably working 3 shifts a day. It doesn't take a lot of people to staff the powerhouse, but we have to have a team on site to make sure everything's running.
Okay, and then I guess we'll discuss when the next update is regarding this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chair, slide number 5. Is that the dam going to be built there? Is that what that is?
Yes.
And then it'll create that reservoir?
Yes.
And that's on the lower side of Ute Mountain, and the Navajo Nation is surrounding that area, correct?
Not surrounding the area. I believe the boundary is around the highway to the west. So I don't think we would be crossing through any of the Navajo unless that Indian Service Road 210, unless that crosses through some Navajo lands, that there may be some there.
You don't expect any protests or anything from there?
We will certainly, as we go through the different versions of the studies. So for example, when you go at the preliminary permit stage, it's put in the Federal Register and the newspaper, and there's some initial comments filed. I think we heard from Farmington and Department of the Interior, and that was it at that stage. But in the next stage, when we do the pad later this year, the next year, then we really ramp up the outreach, and we certainly want as much input from any stakeholders and parties, and that, because all of that has to be factored into the studies that we have to conduct for the FERC license. So if we haven't heard yet, we'll certainly hear more down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Will there
Yes,
be another
Commissioner.
update on it then?
Say it again, Mike.
I was wondering, will there be another update?
Will there be another update? Yes.
Update. Yeah, certainly, when we have, I would say, perhaps some towards the fall, if we have some additional questions answered, be happy to come back and do another presentation. I would say it really depends on how much progress we've made and what's going on. But I would certainly be happy to keep you updated on a regular basis.
Okay.
Very well. Mr. Shapiro, thank you for your presentation, and please keep us updated.
Certainly will do. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, that completes item number 5. Brings us to item number 6, which is a compensation study going to be presented by Melissa Wood. Welcome.
Good afternoon or evening. Can you guys hear me? I'm vertically challenged. I apologize. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, yes, I am here today to present just our compensation study that we had completed. So in your packet, you have the overall presentation for the study. This year, we conducted a little bit of a different study. Normally, the study is done internally by me. I purchased content as well as local and regional entities and utilize that information. We thought it would be a great, my face. We thought it'd be great this year to use a third party and get an outside perspective of where we were as a compensation as a whole. And so we reached out to a few entities, and for the best offer and the best cost, we came across Salary.com. They are a leading resource in compensation. They've been doing this for over 20 years. They have over 4,000 customers and have access to over 25,000 participating organizations with data points. Everything that they used for our particular study was scoped locally and down to regionally, to as well as utilizing government and nonprofit sources to ensure that we really were getting the best information for our industry. Before the study began, we had several meetings with Salary.com. We outlined our objectives and approaches that we were looking for in San Juan County's compensation philosophy. Salary.com provided us with 2 team members that have a wealth of knowledge across the industry, and they helped bring together their team to source and review with our job descriptions over 252 positions that we have here in San Juan County. So our general practice has always been to keep apples to apples, is to look at a position with its midpoint. That way you're not going below what may be a starting value in an industry, and you're not sourcing the top value. So once you find the middle ground, and that's where we stuck to it in our survey as well. We took the San Juan County midpoints currently in the matrix and matched those to the midpoints of the recommended target values. So in the data that you have, we presented, that's what we did. It's 8.1 is the target for most of the positions. We have a few matrices that are outside of that, but we don't definitely start somebody at the middle of the road. This just helps us gauge the top and bottom ranges once we have that comparable value. So with the guidance that they were and information they presented us, we were able to develop the report today and show those midpoint values and the recommended targets. We together used a percent change formula to get that percent difference between the old and the new values. Let's see. Once, if adopted, those values will be generated into the matrices, and that's how we get our new values for the mid and the max. And so the reason for doing this annually is we want to be competitive. We want to make sure that we are valuing and paying positions according to what their market target is. Many organizations are using several strategies right now to attract talent. You know, they're continuing to pay increases. Their hiring and retention bonuses are available, and they're still providing salary increases. And that's what we're looking to do, is make sure that we're paying competitive so that we're not losing people to other markets that are really doing their best to draw people in right now, especially with the fact that our market has a very dwindled pool of labor right now with the nature of our economy and just the situation we've been in for the last 15 months. So it's tough coming out of that. So it is our recommendation, staff recommendation, to implement as many of the recommended adjustments as budget allows. And what we brought to you, there was 252 positions valued. There are 83 that are trailing market, but there are...
By more than 3%.
By more than 3%, yes, thank you, Mike. Didn't finish my thought on that one. I wanted to just highlight that 169 of our positions are within those market limits. They're not, they aren't outside of 3%. And the reason we look at 3%, one, it's one of our steps in our matrix, but it's also been our historical, the way we've historically handled positions that have been outside of a market change. So anything that is under 3% or more, we look to bring that up to market. Let's see. So if budget was allowed and we were able to do it, it would take give or take a few dollars, but the estimate to bring those 83 positions to market, which would affect 352 employees, is $1,220,946. That includes the adjustment that would need to be made, plus payroll taxes and benefits, so para and New Mexico retiree health care. We understand that is a huge chunk of change, and we are in an interesting market right now. And knowing that revenues and budget are a high priority for staff as well as us here in San Juan County, we look to potentially have another option available, and that would be to look at only providing market increase to our patrol deputy sheriffs and our adult detention officers across the 3 facilities. And that alone would involve 206 of the employees that are potentially under market, and would have a budget impact of $627,000. With that, Mike, I think I touched on everything we had intended, but I definitely stand for any questions and any comments that you all may have, and I'm happy to address anything that you need.
Well, I think right off the bat, one thing I'd ask is, in dealing with the public safety aspect with our patrol deputies, and we've all talked about the crisis that we have out at the detention center as far as staffing. I'd ask if we could look further into addressing those 2 specific areas and what that would look like for this year's budget. And I think, when are we set to come back for the final budget?
Mr. Chairman, the end of July, I believe it's July 27th? Yep, Kim's shaking her head, so I guessed right.
Is that too soon to be able to look at that, or can you have something put together for us to look at?
Mr. Chairman, we could get that done and present that to you as the final budget, absolutely.
I think we need to at least look at it, because I know that, at least at the detention center, they're having a harder time filling those positions, and if it's because of this, us being under the standard, I want to look at it. And I know that our patrol deputies as well, we've been losing some to other entities, and so I would like to look at that at least, to have that information available to us. Any questions?
The minimum wage, are we kind of looking at like our lower earning workers? We're looking at more, they'd have to start with the minimum wage? Is that what we're doing too?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Totocini, that we have, and it was one of our parameters in our study to make sure that we did take into consideration not only the current minimum wage, but also the upward trend in minimum wage. So all positions are valued with where they are in the current market. So as it goes across nationwide and values increase, we will have to look at those positions as well.
Just a comment. With COVID, nobody really appreciated, I think, those essential workers. And yet they were the most important to us. Like I think of a custodian who starts off at low or just a common laborer, and yet they do very tough jobs, like the custodian that has to clean up after us, or if somebody throws up, or, the yucky stuff. Then that's the same way like with sheriffs, deputies. They have to deal with people who spit on them and, yell at them and all kind of stuff. And so sometimes I think, there's a lot of worth with certain people in their jobs, but, there's also that where if you want to get a nice white hat position, then you go get college educated. But there's also those essential workers, those vocational people, like the guy that fixes the heating and the cooling. You can't find that expertise. These guys are good at what they do. And it would be nice to compensate them. Even like the transfer station workers, boy, they get chewed out, they get cussed at. It's dirty, it's smelly there, but somebody has to do the job and they do it. And I just hope, we think of the worth of these people who are essential, and even I remember as a teacher, my pay used to be real low, and my husband used to call me supplemental income because he was a truck driver and he made more money than I did, even with my college degree.
Right.
But I would like to see one day where, we pay the custodian really well. We pay the sheriff deputies for what they're worth and what they have to deal with. I'd like to see that. That's just a comment.
Mr.
Questions, comments?
I was just going to add and provide some additional feedback for Commissioner Totocini, but Mr. Chair and Commissioner Totocini, yes, absolutely. That's the point of doing this compensation study, not just this year, but every year, so that we're capturing increases to minimum wage at the state level. This analysis right now is taking into effect that we're at $10.50 per hour, but as we know, next year, the state will move January 1st to $11.25 and then ultimately end up at $12 2 years from now. And so we want to evaluate, the annual compensation study will evaluate trends. It will evaluate the worth of these positions regardless of the position. So we evaluated every position in San Juan County. We want to make sure that there's internal equity in San Juan County, that regardless of what role you're in, whether it's county manager or custodian, that those positions are being valued accordingly. And then that there's also external market equity, so that we're not losing sheriff's deputies to other agencies and having an impossible, almost impossible time recruiting detention officers. We need to make sure that those positions are adequately compensated from an external market situation. So, yes, this is something that we would look to continue going forward. I mean, we've been doing it annually, but we think having this independent, outside third-party review has been very helpful to just make certain that we're covering all our bases, because the last thing we want is to have a compensation system that's not fair for our employees, and ultimately helps us to attract and retain good talent. I would tell you that that's the reason San Juan County is is so successful in providing the services we do, because we do have good people that want to go to work with us, that want to provide those services to the citizens and meet their expectations. And, you know, to be able to attract folks, you need to be able to pay them their worth, and you need to pay them, you know, offer good benefits. And that's all part of the compensation package here. Good retirement, that all those things matter in us trying to be able to provide for our employees and provide the services that our citizens are expecting.
I know we're a county government entity, and ours works a little different than, say, corporation. I was reading in Inc. magazine where this guy who started a company, he really, you know, sugars up his workers. He made a pool for them. He has a place where their kids can play, where a daycare is. I mean, but that's corporate. But
Liability.
you know, and I was amazed at how this CEO, you know, does all that for his workers. But I also want to commend all the supervisors and the county manager. I know that there are times when you, I'm sure what the workers think, you know, they're unsung heroes, but you guys do stuff for them. So I want to commend you, and I know that helps a lot with retention and morale. So, and this study sounds like it's going to really make you see, you know, how we are in our whole county with our workers. But I really think there's a lot of people that are, we should really value them and pay them accordingly, but we don't. But maybe this will help us see that. And we'll do our best as a county government to, you know, keep people working here, because to work for the county, you know, there's benefits there. And there's certain things that are far different than if you had other jobs. So, just a comment.
Well, and I appreciate that we did a third, you know, an outside vendor to do this, so that not everybody's thinking that Melissa's just trying to get her friends raises and stuff like that, so.
Gotta get the perks now.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Okay.
On the frozen, you have 27 positions that are frozen. Where are we at about unfreezing any of those? Are they still pretty locked in as, because I know a lot of the departments are pretty thin.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lanier, that actually is a question outside of my expertise. But I think Mike might have an answer for you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lanier, yes, we're evaluating those positions all the time as to whether or not they need to be unfrozen. You know, we work collaboratively with the department heads and elected officials to find opportunities when they come available, especially over the last, well, I was going to say 3 to 5 years, but it's really been more like 10 to 11 years that we've really had to find ways to become more efficient and to you know, do more with less. And so yes, if we do have situations where departments heads or elected officials feel like there's a need for you know, rehiring those positions, we're certainly open to it. Assuming the budget allows. That's always the constraint with all of this, is when you look at you know, how much can we do with implementing this compensation study. You know, the key's always, and the devil's always going to be in the how much funding do we have available to make that happen. So, but yes, if I have folks that come to me and say we need to look at, you know, we've got a staffing shortage, and the reason we have a staffing shortage or an issue with meeting citizen expectations is because we've got a frozen position, certainly we would take a look at that. But to date, everybody has tried to make it work without you know, needing those additional positions. So,
I guess my question really is this data going to help you? You know, doing this study, is this going to help with look at those positions any more thorough, or is it just?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lanier, this data, what it does, it provides us a roadmap for all positions in the county and to get us eventually to market rates for those employees in those positions that are under market today. So yes, it would help from a recruiting perspective. You know, we've gone through a couple, I'll just give an example of Public Works. We've gone through a couple recruitment cycles looking for a county engineer. And, this study actually indicates that the pay that we're publicizing is actually fair pay relative. So the reason we're having difficulty attracting and recruiting folks, one, they have to meet the minimum qualifications of the position, but two, it's not related to pay. So that's helpful for us to know it's not a pay problem per se. And so, yes, absolutely. Anytime we have this level of data, this level of detail, it helps us to make good data-driven decisions. That's ultimately what we're trying to do. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, that jokingly, that, this helps because now folks can be relieved of the fact that Melissa's not giving raises to their friends, right? Well, that's not the way we do compensation here. We do it with the data. We do a survey of all the various organizations through this company. It's a very thorough, comprehensive study. And not just management, when you look at supervisors, elected officials, departments, can feel good about this. Our employees can feel good about this, that they know that we're always annually evaluating compensation, making sure that they're being paid fairly, both, like I said, internal equity, making sure that exists, as well as external market pay. Does that help answer your question?
That's it. Thank you.
And I would also like to add, Mr. Chairman, if I could, that this is just a presentation. As mentioned, I know you did provide some feedback. Certainly, work on getting that to you at the next, or in advance of the July 27th meeting. For those employees that may be wondering, well, what about, if the commission were to take action with just those two positions, well, what about me? The thought would be is that we can analyze revenues. We feel pretty good about, essentially in this upcoming budget year, being able to cover half of the $1.2 million. But we need to have a little more certainty and find out what internet sales tax looks like. Of course, that change is going to affect July 1st. We won't see revenues from that additional tax that will be, well, it's not an additional tax, it's just finally going to be, the local increments will be collected on internet sales. But we won't see that revenue until September. And so it would be really helpful to be able to see how that's tracking, how that's coming in, and if we're able to correct other positions, we would certainly bring that to you probably in a mid-year type situation, mid-December for consideration, if we feel comfortable that, we can, the recurring revenues will match up to the recurring expenditures. Because ultimately, that's what we need to make certain of, is that we don't put the county, we want to, 78% of the total budget of San Juan County is related to payroll. Our employees, the folks that are providing the on-the-ground services to our citizens, that's the majority of our budget, is, paying for our employees providing the service. We want to make sure that we don't cause ourselves financially an issue and still be able to provide that adequate pay and benefits and compensation. So we will, as we do on a monthly basis, we review our revenue streams. I know Ms. Martin is always paying close attention to that and sends those reports out on a monthly basis. And the good news is things have been improving. We're not as the decline has been a lot smaller this year than what was anticipated. So that's good. We continue to see the trend improving. We hope that trend continues, and if so, we would certainly bring back a recommendation to you based upon those revenues, the performance of those revenues. And I can stand for any questions you might have. Other questions?
Any other questions? That was presentation only, so
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And that brings us to a report from the county manager.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, it's been a long meeting, and I normally would say I'd have a very short report for you, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
Mr. Hollywood cut his mic.
Bear with me, I'll go quick. Just a couple, events coming up, the service awards. I think all of you have that on your calendar, 11:30 at McGee Park. We're going to be recognizing 68 employees this year with 765 total years of service to the citizens of San Juan County. So, and we're going to do it in person, which we weren't able to do last year. So this will be our first legal mass gathering. I'm glad we're going to do it recognizing the employees of San Juan County and their hard work and service to the citizens. So just want to note that. It's parade time, too. We're actually going to have some parades. And so if you're all able to attend the Freedom Day Parade, getting ready for the Connie Mack, too, or?
Oh, no, throwing candy.
Throwing candy. Oh, there you go. Make sure you get close to the curb because they have restrictions on throwing it from the float. That's July 4th. 7:30 is the lineup at the dirt lot next to the KFC. So if you plan on participating, please let Brenda know so we know who to expect. And then the Connie Mack Parade is Friday, July 22nd at 10 a.m. And like I said, we'll have the county, I'm sorry? Thursday. Thank you, Mr. Neely, for correcting me. Thursday, July 22nd. So,
Is the fair doing a parade, or did they go back to joint, or?
my understanding, the city of Farmington has not received a request for a parade from the county fair. Now, the county fair is on. That's another important note. Full fair, carnival, and concerts. And so the Fair Board made that decision and is moving forward in that manner.
I'd heard that the carnival is going to be a little scaled back just because he's having a hard time filling positions, employees.
Correct.
Employees.
We've heard that as well, so we'll see what we end up with on when that time comes, first part of August. So, detainee or vaccination update. We have hit the 60% threshold in San Juan County. 61.2% of San Juan County residents are fully vaccinated as of today. 74.7 have one shot. So presumably in another month, we should be at 74% if everybody were to go and get their second shot. We're the ninth highest vaccination rate in the state out of 33 counties. So doing quite well in that regard. Compare and contrast to the state vaccination rate of 58.5%, so we're ahead of the state, and 67.4 for one shot. Maya Donaldson, who was here earlier, she is the health services administrator for WellPath. 55, she surveyed the detainee population, 55% at the adult detention center. I don't know the statistics for the other two facilities, but are interested in the vaccine. And we hope to have it this Friday, maybe into next week. Is that right, Mr. Webb? More than likely, the shots will be administered Thursday. Okay, so probably next week. But that's great news that we have a pretty high rate of participation there. So that's been going very well. I know Mr. Mestis has been spending a lot of time fielding calls about the $100
So the inmates are going to just miss out on that. They could have used that on their commissary.
Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, per the rules of that game, we found that they were not eligible for the $100.
Because they're not residents, or what?
Apparently it was I'm sorry?
Not eligible if you're incarcerated.
So we did dig into the details of that to make sure.
Ridiculous. Okay.
Let's see here. Cannabis Regulation Act, that was passed the last legislative session. I handed out to you some information we received from the state. As you know, there's an opportunity, not much of one, for local government to have some say in how, where those establishments can locate based upon proximity to, for example, schools and daycare centers. Zoning code really seems to be the way in which you can really try to pinpoint certain areas and where those businesses can exist. All that said, myself, Mr. Sawyer, Mr. Cox, Mr. Webb, some members of the Sheriff's Office will be attending a conference June 30th, which actually will include the state. So we'll be getting hopefully a whole lot more information, answers to questions that we have, and be able to bring to you a plan of action on, and a suggestion on what type of regulation you would like to see that we're able to have some level of control over regarding the recreational marijuana establishments, both on the grow side as well as the retail side. So just wanted to make you aware of that. We received that correspondence today from the state. And I can see you looking at the list. It's a pretty limited list of things that we're able to have control over per the law. So 5500 Bridge, I'm not stealing your thunder, am I, Nick? Okay. I could wait. All right, well, 5500 Bridge project, that's moving along. Kiewit is the contractor, and they're a well-known contractor that's done many of bridge projects. In 2 weeks from now, they'll be going down to one lane. And actually, you'll see, half the bridge disappear, and that will be the lane that's maintained during construction. But one of the things they're really concerned about, and Mr. Neely will be getting some messaging out on this, is that we need folks to seek alternative routes during construction, not try to find ways to drive by to check out the progress. We'll provide plenty of updates on Facebook with pictures, but we need less traffic during construction than more. And folks really need to watch their speed. So that's going to be part of our messaging to the community to really watch out for those that are working on the site and really try to limit traffic during construction to local traffic only, those that live in the area that need to cross the bridge. So but things are progressing well, and hope to have that project completed soon. And last but not least, he's not here because, he's not taking a day off between now and retirement. He's actually on a call with the Central Consolidated School District. But as you know, Doug Eccles, our county attorney, is retiring. 40 years of over 40 years of practicing law across a number of different disciplines, both private practice here at the county, the city. He's a district court judge, and so he's certainly going to be missed. So we're going to have a great send-off party for him, and I want to make sure you're all aware of it. June 29th from 3 to 5 right here in this room. So make sure you get that on your calendar. We can thank Doug for his service to this county. We were able to do that this morning in our staff meeting, but unfortunately he's on a call. So, but with that, I do want to announce, we're at San Juan County have really benefited over the years with our succession planning and developing that next generation of leadership, and certainly that's no different in the legal department. Joe Sawyer is our current deputy county attorney, and Doug's been so kind to give him some time up here at the big chair for the last 3 meetings.
Right.
Make sure this was something he really wanted to do.
Yeah. Well, Doug, he took very few sick days, so I rarely had the opportunity to sit up here because he never missed a meeting. But yes, it's been good.
Yeah, so I'm happy to announce that Joe Sawyer will be our next county attorney. 13 years as the deputy county attorney, 21 years of practicing law, and that will become effective June 30th. Doug's last day will be June 29th for his party, and so I just wanted to make that announcement of Joe being promoted into the position of county attorney for San Juan County. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll do my best. Yeah, it's like I've been telling everyone, it's going to be hard to follow Doug, but I'll do my best. I talked to someone at NewMac, the New Mexico counties, and he said, I still think of you as a baby attorney. I thought, I'm almost 50 years old.
Well, and I didn't want to point it out, but you do have a little bit of the gray hair to show.
Well, actually, it's actually black, but I dye gray, so take me seriously.
I know the feeling.
That's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Any reports from elected officials or department heads?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I got here first. Devin Neely, San Juan County Public Relations and Film Manager. Good afternoon. In the vein of inviting you to all these fun things, parades and county fairs and all sorts of things, on June the 24th at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you are invited to a ribbon cutting at the newly remodeled Tota Theater in downtown Farmington. We're very excited to show it off. We hope that you'll all be there for the snipping of the, instead of a red ribbon, I have found some film stock that we'll be cutting across the stage, the Tota Theater, so please join us out there then.
Awesome, thank you.
He thinks he beat me, but it's his birthday, so I let him win. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, seems like all I do is talk drought and then come talk to you about flooding, so here I go again. Part of what the National Flood Insurance Program does is provide flood insurance to everybody at a reasonable cost, or at least at a cost that they can afford over time. The way that we reduce that cost, or one of the ways, is through the community rating system, which I coordinate for San Juan County. Presently, we're at a 10% discount in flood hazard policies that are within the floodplain. To maintain that, one of the things I have to do is provide you with a copy of and I'm going to preface this, this is a federal template. I did not write this grammatically, so please don't hold that against me. Nor did I decide how this sounds like a promotion for flood insurance. But I have to do this document. I have to give it to you to review. You don't have to take action on it. I am requesting a letter signed that I did give it to you, just so I can tell the auditor that I did it and prove it. I have also provided you with the New Mexico Floodplain Managers Association coloring book, which I headed. It also comes with sticker page, because I know everybody likes stickers. So may I approach?
You too could be insured for flood insurance at a 10% discount.
We need an ostrich.
You need a commercial.
What is it with the, not the lizard, but the ostrich?
My grandkids ran into
Liberty?
Need
two of these? Mutual.
Yeah, they have the ostrich and the...
I have more at my office. If you guys need more of these, I have boxes.
You need a third?
I have boxes at my office.
Hand it to me. 3 coloring books out of this deal. That's when Grandpa nap time. That's right, yeah.
Devin doesn't deserve a coloring book.
It is his birthday.
Okay, I guess he can have one.
Did you guys have any questions other than that? Sorry.
So this is a requirement from the federal government that you provide this to us?
Yes, and basically what it says is, we have this many policies out, we've had this many policies used, and we're supposed to try to promote flood insurance to increase our policies. But again, with Risk 2.0 coming up, I hesitate to really do much pushing, because I feel like the federal government hasn't defined how this is going to affect people outside the existing flood hazard areas. And that's the part that's missing with the information they're giving out.
So there are only 97 people insured in San Juan County for flood insurance?
Unincorporated.
Unincorporated.
Yes, sir.
Interesting.
And you can see we've only had a few claims. We actually have only one repetitive loss, and it's actually not in the floodplain, didn't cause it to get damaged. What caused it to get damaged was a landslide that hit a ditch outside of the floodplain and came into the floodplain.
Oh, La Plata.
No.
No?
Surprisingly enough, they had no flood insurance and made no claim. It was actually out in Navajo Dam, off of 511. And it happened twice, same place, same ditch, same house.
Wow.
But they had flood insurance, so they were covered.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you. Anyone else that wasn't as quick as Mr. Neely? All right. So that brings us to Our comments from the general public limited to 3 minutes per person on subjects the commission has not previously discussed or formal action has not been taken. No formal action will be taken at this meeting which relates to comments or input from the general public. There are different ways that these can be submitted, but I don't think we have any submitted statements or anything online. So we will open it up to those in attendance that wish to address the commission. Come on up. Just state your name for the clerk.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, my name is Lauren Bernally, and I'm policy analyst for the Navajo Nation Human Rights Commission. I come to you today to talk to you about a recent law that was passed. It's Senate Bill 304. And it's regarding the New Mexico Redistricting Commission Task Force. Our office was involved in the redistricting task force that came together, and through this legislation, we were very successful in getting a statement in the law that will allow now, I don't know who's going to be drawing your precincts for San Juan County, but will allow that person drawing these precincts to recognize tribal chapter boundaries. Right now, the precincts go all over the place with these boundaries. And so with this law, it allows us to give you the opportunity to work with us to make sure that these lines all line up. We have precincts that go into other areas that cause voters to travel great distances. In other instances, we have other situations where voters are confused about what precincts they're voting in. So we really would like to take this opportunity to see if we could work with the consultant that has been hired. I believe it's Rod Adair, okay? And we'd like to reach out to him to see if we could work with him. We have worked with Michael Sharp with Research and Polling, who has done the precincts drawings for McKinley County Commission. And just this morning, McKinley County Commission passed those new precinct boundaries. With our assistance, we were very happy to see that McKinley County has made history in the sense that this is the first time that chapter boundaries will be recognized in relation to precinct boundaries. So we appreciate the opportunity if we could have some type of working relationship and a discussion with Mr. Adair as he begins this. It's a big undertaking, and we would really appreciate the opportunity to work with him.
Thank you. I would ask that you just reach out to the clerk's office, and I think Tanya can get you moving in the right direction, and we can look at some of those things.
Yes, we did speak earlier, and we are willing to work with her to provide the shape files for our chapter boundaries.
Very well.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Mr. Chairman, I had 2 emailed comments.
Oh, 2 emailed comments? Do you
Yeah.
mind reading those in?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The first one is from Gary Allen Hout. It said to all county commissioners, please keep us in mind out here at the Riverside community for the meeting Tuesday evening. That's tonight's meeting. Please work on the noise ordinance for us so we can stay retired in peace and without all the noises and lawlessness. Thank you so much for your time and effort, Mr. Hout. And the second one was from Judy Bryson. We will not be able to attend the meeting on the 15th, but wanted you to know that we still have serious concerns with TICO time. Even though Rob has cut back, that's the owner, the operator, has cut back on some of the hours of music. When they have live music on the east stage, which is right next to the cliff, it echoes down the valley like an amphitheater. There are times when it is so loud we can hear people's voices and the band sounds like it's in our yard. This is not acceptable to us. You need some kind of noise mitigation or turn it down so only his guests can hear it, not the whole valley. We expect he has been watching himself for now. We know when it is 4th of July, it will be a madhouse since they have events all day and into the evening for 5 days. There needs to be some rules and regulations. Let me say again, he was given a permit for an RV park, not a concert venue. We are counting on the county commission to remedy this situation. Thank you, Judy and Lynn Bryson. Mr. Chairman, I might add, I did have a conversation with Mrs. Bryson yesterday. And actually, she did acknowledge, as she did in her email, that there's been great efforts made in reducing the noise and limiting activity post 9 p.m. In fact, I think the sheriff's office, in speaking with Lieutenant Jameson today, he'd indicated the last 3 weeks, they've only had one complaint, and it was a fireworks complaint at 9:03 p.m. And Mrs. Bryson acknowledged that and said she feels like they're making great efforts. She's just concerned that future events could maybe, revert back to what they've experienced before. But she was willing to continue to give them a chance to be a good neighbor like they've indicated they would. So I just thought I'd share that with you. It was a very positive conversation, and she'd recognized they've been making great efforts to be a good neighbor.
Is that it for comments?
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, it looks like we have exhausted our agenda, so I'll declare the meeting adjourned.
You like me throwing stuff?
Yeah, I like that. I'm glad I went sit by. That'd be a dead man. That would have been a pet in the jugular.
Oh, my goodness. It was funny.
So this week is district and next week is state.